Oh, goodness. Sorry, heartburn. Such a weird excuse. Hey! Thank you for joining the Escape With Me Book Club. Escape with me, Sam Reiner.
And me, Danielle.
Into our most recent read. Come with us as we evade reality and go into detail about a new book. We'll be covering the book from beginning to end, so there will be spoilers. Today we're going to Fairview, Connecticut, United States. Or Little Kilton, Buckinghamshire, United Kingdom in the UK or global version. I learned that today, by the way.
I also happened to look that up today, making sure I knew all of the characters' names, because there were a lot in this book.
Yes.
I did not know there was 2 different versions or different locations. That doesn't make any sense, but more on that later, I guess.
Published in May 2019, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is the debut novel of UK author Holly Jackson. Pippa is entering her senior year and has all your typical teen problems. Getting into college, keeping her grades up, trying not to drift apart from longtime friends. The only difference is she's also decided to solve a murder. 5 years ago, her town was rocked by the murder of All-American, or All-United Kingdom, Andy Bell, depending on the version. Everyone in town is convinced the murderer was her boyfriend, Sal, which seems to be confirmed by his suicide just a few days later. But Pippa isn't so sure, and based on the threatening notes she keeps getting, she's on the right track. So I found out about this book, I think on Twitter. I think you found out about it on TikTok.
Yes, hashtag book talk. Love it. I've found so many good books. And some bad ones, guys. You need to stop recommending some of these terrible books to people.
Never.
This was a good one. I think you and I both gave it 4 stars on Goodreads.
Yeah, I think that is accurate. And it's been on my list probably forever. Once again, sometimes I think I started this book club just so I actually read the books that I say I want to.
You're doing it. You're reading the book.
I'm doing the thing. So win. Who needs subscribers or anything? We just want to read books.
Hey, if that's the motivation it needs, we'll take it.
Little bit goals, because all my co-stars, I'm like, hey, read books.
Thanks.
And then they read books, and then win.
Well, some of us read books, some of us audiobook.
It counts.
It does count. There's some controversy right now on TikTok, or at least on the TikToks that I watch, about does an audiobook count? And it better, because I've done like 100 of these this year already, and I want credit.
I think it counts.
I think it counts. Leave in the comments if you think it does or does not count. I need everybody on my side. Audiobooks are books, guys. There's book in the title.
If you know the story by the end of the process, it's fine.
What about blind people? Unless they read a book in Braille, does it not count if they get an audiobook?
Yeah, I think it just all counts. It doesn't matter how you read.
I don't know why I'm arguing. You're on my side, but the rest of the internet, get on my side. Thank you.
You are very salty, and that is why.
Yeah. But anyway, so now that I know that it supposedly was supposed to happen in London or near, it's a fake town in London.
Like it's a fake town in Connecticut, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense either way, unless something dramatically was changed. You could place the story in just about anywhere. There are some woods in the Connecticut that are kind of important, but because I've never been to Connecticut, I don't know, they could have 0 trees. And I'd be like, wow. And I don't think London is super tree-filled, but it might be.
Well, they're not in London. They're in random shire, ham town.
Yeah. So with the UK one, did you look that up? Is that the first one? Because Wikipedia that I looked up was confused.
When you look up the publishing date, it doesn't list different dates. For example, if you look up the Harry Potter books, it has hey, it came out in the UK on X date, and then it came out in the US on X date. But this book only has one publishing, and I'm really confused why. I don't know if they just thought American teens wouldn't care about Britain teens or something. It's very odd.
No, we care way more. We care way more. If I knew this is a British book, it would have made a little bit more sense because of her capstone project as a senior in high school, which is a college thing, or at least in America. I had a senior capstone, but in college, I think would have made more sense if I was like, oh yeah, it's just a British thing. Roll with it. I was so mad I took a whole star off of my review for that fact, which sounds petty now. But nope, there was it.
It does, and it also changes the connotation of the police.
Yes, because they're small town southern-ish Connecticut. like it. Terrible at their job, police, which is very American and small town, and it makes sense. And I was like, oh yeah, roll with that. Cops are the worst. They didn't even try to solve this girl's murder, and now a teenager is doing it.
Yeah, but I feel like just based on the political climate, both could be either UK or US, could totally be incompetent, totally could protect their own, whatever. But I feel like US cops, there's also an edge of danger, and that isn't there with UK cops. So changing the location, I also feel like changes the character that is a police officer, that is a suspect.
I immediately thought it was him. I cannot remember his name to save my life. And I looked up the character names and I didn't even bother to write his down.
Oh my goodness. Wait a second. We need to do the age level and the content warning.
I just want to talk about this book. Let me talk about it.
No, we have to warn people because
there's a lot that happens that's triggering.
Yeah, it's young adult, but older young adult.
Teens, not preteens. Because a lot of the YA books that you read are like, oh, even though the characters are 16 to 18 or 19, you could have read this in junior high. This one, it's nothing graphic. So I want to start with that. It has a lot of topics that are very common in YA books, but might be triggering.
Yeah, so I almost want to argue it's new adult because I don't think a 15-year-old, 14-year-old, 13-year-old, unless they're really mature, this would be the book for them. I feel like it would have to be 17 or 18 senior reading it. And so that makes me think it's almost borderline new adult. And if it had been a capstone project in college, it would be new adult. If we really want to get into subgenres that are not super popular or well used. But let me get my paragraph here. Content warning, everything. But specifically, kidnapping, murder, suicide, racism, emotional and verbal abuse, bullying, sexual assault, mention of self-harm through an eating disorder, mention of child pornography, drug usage, language, animal death, mental illness, and mention of rape.
Man, I think I forgot about a couple of those little plot points that are triggers.
Yeah, this book has a lot. It's 436 pages, which I think is pretty long.
For a YA book, they're usually about 280, 350 maybe.
Yeah, even for an adult book, that would be on the longer edge. Judge a book by its cover. The only thing I really got from it was a murder mystery. Duh. The main character was probably going to be this self-proclaimed good girl. And I kind of wondered if it was the good girl solving the murder or if it was kind of like Pretty Little Liars vibes.
Yeah, with the corkboard picture with the red lines showing, I assumed she was going to solve the murder, but it's a little bit of confusing vibes from just the cover. If you didn't even read the synopsis or anything, it sounds like How to Get Away with Murder, that TV show.
Exactly.
And this specific book is not that.
No.
I have read the rest of the series, and one of the three, there's actually 3.5, there's a little side book that I did not read, but it's a prequel to the series. I mean, she goes to a murder mystery party or something. I found out about it the other day. Have not read that one. But one of the books in the series, she does try to get away with the crime. So, something to look forward to.
Oh dear. I mean, to be fair, she does several crimes in this book, so...
The breaking and entering, and not quite witness tampering, but kind of. She should not be interviewing any of these people.
Oh my gosh, yes. Let's start there, because the first thing you read is the capstone submission, and she's saying what she wants to do. And she's framing it as a studying the media representation of how this case was handled, but actually she wants to solve the murder. And at the end of this, I think it's front and back, one page, is comments from her teacher who's in charge of the capstone project. And her one caveat is, hey, this is a really touchy subject for a lot of people. You can do this, but you can't have any direct conversations with either of the families. So Andy Bell or the boyfriend. The suspected murderer. And then the first chapter is her walking up to the Singh house.
Immediately. She doesn't even maybe I should sit and think about this or talk to other people in this town. Nope.
Immediately. And that was the first thing I thought was, girl, you're going to lose your capstone, which does not happen. I'm surprised that didn't come up more, but okay.
She also at some point tries to back out of it later on in the book. So she ends up eventually dating Robbie. I don't know if it's at the very end of this book or about the middle. And Robbie is Sal's little brother.
Yeah, that's who she ends up talking to when she goes to the Singh's house and talks to the family, even though she's not supposed to talk to the family.
Yes. But she tries to back out of it, and her capstone professor, teacher, whoever, is like, no, finish your work. Keep doing this. It's fine. I'll just drop out. Whatever. And her teacher's like, no, finish this.
Yeah, I think, okay, so early decision deadlines are usually in October for the US. I don't know about the UK. So I'm going to say it was mid-October, and she wanted to change the topic because the potential murderer, the person leaving threatening notes, had been threatening, and oh my gosh, so scary. And so she wanted to change the topic at this point, and her teacher was like, it is way too late for that. You will not be able to do this if you change your topic. So
still very dumb. Then it got approved at all, and then that she was like, no, maybe I should change it because of out of respect to her now boyfriend or close friend, whatever they are at this moment in time, because it was his older brother.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I actually know him. I'm involved in this now. Girl, you're the farthest thing from the story. Why were you doing this? It's so inappropriate that she was doing the capstone project.
Extremely inappropriate. But I guess it was the framing device. But can we talk about, okay, once again, not supposed to talk to them, but Leon goes and talks to them and gets Ravi involved. And I don't know how capstones work in the UK. I am basing my knowledge off of people I knew in high school that did an independent study. You had to give reports and show work during the semester. And what she does is she types these little entries in her notebook where it'll be a lot of her personal thoughts. She almost treats it like a diary, I want to say. Anyway, but she'll write transcripts for phone calls or whatever. Straight up, her first entry is, I know I said this is what my capstone project is about, but actually I'm just trying to solve a murder. And I'm like, if the teacher saw that, if she had to do her progress report and submitted that, I feel like the teacher would be like, okay, we're done. You are failed.
She didn't even try. I mean, she did solve the murder in the end. Shocker, spoiler. But that was not what her goal was. Her goal was to talk about the media involvement in a case in her hometown like 5 years ago and how it affected, the whole town believed that Sal did it. The whole town. I mean, to be fair, she did a couple days after Andy was killed and her body never found. He did go to the woods, supposedly, and kill himself.
With a text to his dad.
It was a suicide note.
He basically is like, I did it, I'm sorry.
It was about media involvement. It's not about Sunday Santa's murder.
Yeah, technically, she should have been failed.
No, they should not have let it get this far. I do want to say, I didn't realize it was written out as the transcript. I did the audiobook, which I highly recommend, especially for the second book, honestly, if anybody else wants to continue the series. They do different cast voice actors, and they play a recording. It's the transcript. It's the two of them talking, and then it goes back to just her point of view and her story and the main narrator's voice and stuff. That seems so much cooler than, here's a transcript. Let me read this for you. So that is 1 point for audiobooks.
You didn't notice this because you had the audiobook, but I noticed that there were so many times where, okay, the book is set up where a chapter will happen and it'll be in the narrative, and then Pippa did X. She talked to X. They ba-ba-ba-da-da, and it's written in prose. And then there will be the report she does, which is Pippa writing on her laptop to kind of diary entry what is happening in the investigation. And sometimes the prose, especially in the beginning, are so threadbare. Just trying to get you from one to the other has nothing to do with what ends up happening in the report. And then sometimes back to back in the prose section, she will talk to someone and interview them. And then it switches to the report. And then she's like, oh, here's a transcript for the interview I did right after that. How did the author choose which was going to be a transcript and which was going to be an actual scene?
I did notice it wasn't all of them, so I did notice that, but it was way cooler listening to this book, I think, than you got a feel of actually reading it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I am going to get the physical book of this one, just because I really did enjoy this in the second one. The third one definitely drops off for me. I had my own issues with it, but the series as a whole is really good. And it's been a while since I found a YA mystery series that I actually like. I know we've done a lot of the Kara McManus and the Kara Thompson books, not for a podcast, but just for reading.
Yeah, and the Colleen
Hoover.
I can't remember her last name off the top of my head, but yes, her as well.
So many books. And I do have to give this author credit for coming up with an interesting, if not tacky, in that it's kind of disrespectful to make your college application essay a premise.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
In the second one, it makes more sense because she just does a podcast, a true crime podcast, which everybody does. There's so many of those out in the world right now. And honestly, I feel like she could have done the exact same legwork and the story could have almost stayed completely the same. But she's innocently deciding that this guy is innocent and has to solve the actual murder. I don't know. It does something weird for me.
Her reasonings for thinking Sal didn't do it.
He was nice to me one time when I was a kid. He died 5 years ago, and so did Andy Bell. But he was nice to me. He was kind of friends with people that I knew. My friend's older sister was friends with him.
Yeah, and it's really weird because, like I said, Ravi's like, well, why do you think he didn't do it? Because Ravi doesn't think he did it because he knew Sal. That was his older brother. But he's like, well, why do you think Sal didn't do it? And she's like, well, it really is. When I was a kid, he was nice to me, and I can't imagine him being a murderer. But you know, this person that has been like an older sister to me for my entire life, and she's always been kind, put her on the suspect list. Second person down.
She almost immediately suspects Naomi, her best friend Kara's older sister Naomi, who was also friends with Sal. And I hate her for it. I hate Pip. I do grow to love her as the series continues, but in this person, I'm like, oh heck no. If I knew her, if I was Naomi, I would not put up with this girl.
It's just so weird. I don't understand her obsession with Sal. They really don't leave any sort of, XYZ happened and I've idolized him ever since. It really is. I was at my friend Kara's house. Sal was there talking to Naomi, and Sal was nice to me when we talked.
So dumb. Pippa is a bad judge of character.
Oh my gosh, this girl. The lack of, first of all, insight on people is annoying, but her lack of self-preservation boggles.
She don't care. Let me go talk to this drug dealer. Let me go harass people who change their witness statement. Let me go bother my friend's older sister who clearly has a lot going on. I hate Pippa. You're supposed to love the main character. And I think part of it, and it's such a dumb reason, and it has to work up with the premise and the title and all of that, but she keeps referring to herself as a good girl, and it's not a ton. It's easy to overlook. I don't know. That phrase just bothers me for some reason.
Yeah, she's not so much a quote-unquote good girl as she's a stick in the mud.
Yeah, she definitely has that type A personality that's not fun to bring to a party.
If we were gonna call her a good girl, it's a good girl stereotype. I never do anything. I just always do my homework, so I always have good grades. And I love my family so much. And I don't drink or do anything bad because I'm just not for that. It's that. And it's not good like, she is good for the world. Like, she volunteers and is making charities or inventions at 10 that save villages. It's not like that. Like, she's created something that is helping the world. So yeah, I also agree. It's the good girl where you look back and it's, you have to be a good girl. And so it's kind of creepy and actually kind of ugh.
And Andy Bell gives some of that station too, which they slowly uncover the many layers of Andy Bell.
Well, that felt very, we don't speak bad about the dead.
Yeah.
And that's why I call her kind of all-American, because it feels like that very stereotypical drama, like, the head cheerleader. She's so perfect and wonderful and popular, but everyone knows she's the bully. But she's the head cheerleader and she's blonde.
She was so pretty, and her young life was taken away before she could do anything with it. Honestly, what she did with it while she was here was not great.
No.
She had an affair with one of her teachers, which is super great. Her and her sister have this whole dynamic. She's a terrible sister to Becca. And most of her friends, like Sal, is the only one who truly seems to know her, and she's cheating on him.
Yeah, doing that. She's a drug dealer. She is bullying to the point of tricking a girl into sending nudes to a guy and then sharing them. Illegal levels of bullying. She's blackmailing a teacher, not even her teacher. She does not have this teacher. Anyway, this teacher helped Sal get into, I think, Harvard or Yale or some Ivy League, and she decides sleeping with him to blackmail him into getting her also in the college. It doesn't make sense. Don't think too hard about Andy's motivations here.
And the series continues. Andy Bell is gone, but not forgotten.
Even though a lot of people wish they could. Even her best friends are like, we don't really want to talk about her because she's kind of a terrible person.
You know who does want to talk about her? Pippa, little pickle. Her dad calls her Pickle, and I'm so quick to judge dads in YA books.
Right? There was a point in the very, very beginning. Okay, so the friends are hanging out, Sal's friends, the night that Andy gets murdered. And there's five of them, sorry. And supposedly Sal left early. All the friends are saying Sal left early, and so that doesn't give him an alibi. But when Pip is trying to investigate Naomi, there's a point. They're like, oh, Sal wasn't feeling well and left early, but Naomi and Millie stayed the night, so the four friends stayed the night. And Naomi's like, yeah, I was there the whole time. And then Max, who was a different friend, is like, no, Naomi went MIA for a good portion of the night. She went upstairs for a while, and we don't know what happened. And I put in my notes, this is probably like chapter 4. I don't even know the dad, but I was like, I swear to goodness, if she is sleeping with his dad or something, I'm going to throw the book through the wall, because that is always how these books go. And no, she's not the one sleeping with a dad. Andy's the one sleeping with a dad, so it does still happen, but oh my goodness.
Yeah. So Andy is sleeping with Elliot Ward, who is Kara and Naomi's dad. So not only is Andy sleeping with a teacher and blackmailing him, she's also sleeping with her friend Naomi's dad.
Well, her boyfriend's friend, Naomi. Not her friend.
But they're in the friend group. By extension, this is your little posse.
Which I hope you're getting out your red string now, because you're going to need it to keep all this straight. I had to have an entirely different section in my notes, because normally I do stereotypical outline, Roman numeral, big letter A, indent, number, indent, that style.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll usually go in like a narrative form, but no, I had to have an entire Roman numeral set out for background and the timeline to keep it straight. Because that's what a good portion of the first part of the book is just figuring out what the crap the timeline is.
Yeah, and the first half of the book honestly takes a little too long to get there for me. And then the last half of the book is like, bam, 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 here's all the info. We solved the murder.
It's a lot.
And a lot of YA thriller mystery things do the same kind of pattern. But having read 3 of her books, it is definitely her pattern of Holly Jackson, the author. It takes way too long to get there. And I think it's because I hated Pip that I had to keep putting up with her and her stupid investigation.
It also is, like I said, the narrative portions, the prose portions, the chapters in the beginning are just random 4-pages episodes. And it's like, okay, cool. Nothing is happening here. Just get to the next report so we can see what the heck happened in the investigation. Sometimes it's interesting because, oh, she's interviewing Naomi or whatever, but I don't feel like it's consistently interesting until part 2, at least.
No, for sure. That's definitely where it picked up a little.
Because at the end of part 1, she gets her first scary, threatening note. And so from there on, it's actually very much more interesting. There are stakes in this other than I am doing a capstone project, but actually I'm not doing a capstone project. So that is definitely a benefit. But yeah, you have to get through an entire part 1 to get there. Oh, I also kind of wondered if Pip was in love with Sal. Not in a I'm in love with him, but in the little kid crush kind of way. Because that was the only reason I could think she was so obsessed with him and was like, I must prove his innocence. I know he didn't do it. Because there's that one point where she's like, well, maybe he did do it. But then immediately is like, but he didn't.
She literally makes a list of every person it can be, and it's the police officer. I think the teacher's on the list. It's definitely Naomi's on the list. It's definitely thought Naomi did it.
Yeah. So the people on the list are Andy's dad, who is a terrible human being and just does not need to exist anymore. Naomi, then Max, who is also the friend. Okay, so they say, hey, Sal has 4 friends, but Pip only focuses on 2 of them, and that's Naomi and Max. So you can ignore the other 2. So those 3 are on the list. And then she finds out about a bully victim. Like I said, the illegal levels she should have gone to. Anyway.
Yeah, 17. I'll solve this murder. I'm getting threats. That's fine. Don't care.
Oh my gosh. I will talk about the threats in a second. So the bully victim, her name... I'm going to scroll down. How many pages? I have 5 pages of names.
There are a lot of characters in this book.
There are a lot of people that she just give names to. And then there are a lot of people she doesn't give names to. It's no rhyme or reason here.
Yeah.
So that's the bully victim. And then her brother is Daniel De Silva. That's the police officer. And apparently, now that I think about it, this actually stays open and they never resolve this plot line. But apparently, like freshman or sophomore year or maybe in middle school, I don't even know. But Natalie had a lead in a play and then Andy blackmailed her and it was like, hey, I slept with your brother and he's an adult. So if you don't give me this part in the play, I'm just going to tell everybody and then his life is going to be ruined. And then Natalie didn't know if it was true or not. And so she gave the part in the play. And so that's part of the motive for Daniel. He might have had this really inappropriate relationship.
It might not even have been true.
Now that I think about it, the affair is kind of a big deal. The book doesn't really focus on him as a suspect as much as the others, but she was a minor and he's married, and apparently his wife, who is pregnant, does not trust him worth spit. Because, oh no, he's talking to a 17-year-old. Let me harass the child. That whole scene was awkward. Lady, get into marriage counseling or dump him.
Yeah.
Don't harass a 17-year-old because she talked to your man. That was a moment. And then the drug dealer is on the list. I think that's it. Yeah, I think there's just 6 because at the end she does the whole corkboard thing. It takes her way too long to get a corkboard given the cover. But those are the suspects.
For Pippa.
For Pippa. But not for me. You know who also should have been on the list? The freaking racist reporter Stanley Forb. Pippa is watching the drug dealer, Howie Bowers, and Howie seems to be blackmailing Stanley, but we never get any follow-up on that. I have questions.
You will have answers. Finish the theory.
Okay, I'll take that.
To be continued.
Okay, that's good.
No, this book sets up so much to give you questions to keep you going, to ask so that you'll read the next couple.
There's a lot of loose threads at the end of this.
Because there's way too many. If this was a standalone book, it would not survive. There's too many unanswered questions. It wraps up so neatly, but also so terribly at the end. It wraps up Andy's story. It's fine. But Pippa and her whole crew, all the characters.
I think I'm more annoyed by the fact that it didn't tip Pippa off that it was weird. I'm glad they go back and answer that for my curiosity, but I'm very mad at her.
Yeah, Pippa is so focused and for no reason. She is not involved in this case at all. She barely knew Sal, honestly, or Andy.
I'm actually kind of impressed by how removed Pippa is. The author had to sit down and think of this web of relationships.
She's nowhere near it. She's not in it.
Somehow managed to find the most removed person, the best friend of the little sister of the friend of Sal's.
Yeah, no.
She met him like 3 times.
And she was 12 when he died. When Andy and Sal died, Pippa was 12. I guess she was trying to go for that, what is it? Not the innocent bystander. There's a phrase. Some kind of witness that's untampered with.
Third party?
Yeah, that's probably it. I'll think of something else, but I'm never going to remember it. It'll be like the middle of the night. I'll wake up and be like, oh, this is what I meant.
You're going to text me at 6 a.m. in the morning tomorrow with it.
It's an uninterested party or something else.
But she is very interested.
She's so interested. But she shouldn't be. She needs to leave this poor family alone to grieve. The daddy issues. I've got to talk about it.
Okay.
So the author clearly has some kind of daddy issues. she has Pip be the main character. Her and her dad's relationship is so perfect. It's so cute.
It's her stepdad, because her dad's dead.
Is it her stepdad? Maybe that's why I immediately was like, oh no, he's the killer. He's gross. Something's wrong with him. He keeps calling her Pickle. I don't know. He rubbed me the wrong way for most of the book.
I think you've just read too many YAs.
It definitely is. To be fair, two of the other dads in the story were gross or terrible dads. So we have Andy Bell and Becca Bell's dad, Jason, who is the whole reason, more or less, that Andy ends up dead. And then you have Elliot Ward, who's Kara and Naomi's dad and the teacher, who is also basically the whole reason that Andy is dead. So,
in total, I think you made 4 dads, and 2 of them are scum of the earth.
Trash dads.
And then the other are insanely wholesome. No in between.
Yeah. I kept waiting for Pippa's dad to be involved in this somehow, in this scandal, and Pippa gets to keep her perfect dad while her friends' parents turn out to be trash and get outed as trash too. But it says something about an author, and I guess it's because it is YA, so a lot of the people have stepdads with a past or dads that are up to no good, and I don't know. It was half of the dads in this book. Half of them.
Yeah, I kind of see what you were saying.
It gross how many dads are involved in this.
It really was. Like, either you were the literal scum of the earth, either you abuse your wife and children,
or cheat.
Honestly, something was wrong with Elliot. I don't know what mental illness or...
I think mostly he was just obsessed with Andy Bell because they're in a sort of relationship. She's blackmailing him, but I think he loved her.
I don't think so. I don't know. If it was just this super grief that he had and he took this relationship with a student way too far, but then the whole confrontation happens, and I guess to skip to the end a little bit, Andy hits her head and has, you find out later, a concussion, and then leaves the house, and then Elliot is so convinced that he technically murdered her that he just has this psychiatric break, and the ending was another level. A lot of this is really relatable stuff. It's like underage drinking and the dangers of going to house parties and people spiking drinks and then being alone with scary drunk guys. It's heavier stuff, but it's teen relatable.
And then there's Elliot Ward. Okay, first of all, he thinks he's killed Andy, and she stumbled her way home to die, which is actually kind of what happened. But he thinks she's dead and it's his fault.
Murders Sal.
Yeah, and then he frames the poor boyfriend, the actual boyfriend, and not the creepy teacher, father of her friends that he was, and plants it as a suicide to make it, oh, nobody will have any suspicion of me now.
Which worked.
And then a couple years down the road, he's still a psycho. He hasn't let it go. He hasn't let Andy go. He swears that he sees her.
On the side of the road.
And she's been on drugs, and she was alive this whole time. So he has the guilt about Sal now, and the, oh my goodness, I've turned her into, I think, a prostitute. I'm not quite sure. She definitely was homeless.
Okay, let's just be straight up. He kidnaps this random girl.
She's not Andy. Andy is dead, guys.
And the girl has some sort of mental illness where her mental age is significantly younger than what her actual age is. And then she's also caught up in drugs, which is not helpful either. So she gets convinced that she is Andy Bell. And for 5 years, this man has had this secret house, and 3 times a week will go to this house and cook her warm meals, and has converted this attic apartment for her. So she's just there and kidnapped. And Pip goes there to confront him, and then Elliot Ward's like, oh yeah, I have Andy Bell kidnapped, which is kind of crazy. But then you get up there and it's not Andy Bell.
That moment for me was like, oh my God. Like,
oh, I knew.
Got so much worse. I was already like, oh my God, he's had Andy this whole time. She's been kidnapped. No, some other poor girl has been.
Kidnapped for the past 5 years. This is such another level of what the heck is going on anymore.
There's so many mini little plots and just extra unraveling of the string. There's so much.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just, I guess, almost a little bit out of place with how insane it is. That's not something your average teenager's gonna be worried about.
Well, and if you took the whole kidnapping this other strange girl and making her pretend that she's Andy thing, which I think he truly believed it was Andy.
Yes, which is another problem.
Yeah, but even if you took all of that out, it's still a teacher hooking up with a student and then thinks he killed her and then framed the boyfriend and then had him pretend to commit suicide by the murder. It's a lot to unpack without even adding the kidnapping.
But then she added the kidnapping, and then it's just so extra.
That's where this book lost it for me, but honestly, I love it.
And then that's not even the end of the story, because you have to find out who technically murdered. Not really, but manslaughter. Is that a verb? Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. So it's a lot. And we haven't even talked about most of the book. Just the ending is a lot. Because we have to go everywhere. We just have to go everywhere to get here.
But to be fair, Pippa follows a lot of leads that end up leading nowhere, or she suspects for a long while. And as soon as I knew that Pip suspected someone, I was like, nah, this is definitely not the killer. She's so stupid. She does not know how to investigate. So anytime she thought anybody was suspicious, I was like, nah, no, Naomi could not have done this. She thought for a while Max had done it, which, I mean, Max is a scumbag.
Yes, and he is guilty of other crimes.
Yes.
But not murder.
He was one who would put things in girls' drinks and then take advantage of them.
Yep.
And he does that to Andy's little sister Becca, specifically, but also other people?
Maybe, maybe not. That's the only confirmed one we have.
And then there's the whole drug dealing business. Andy sells drugs for a while. That's one of the big giant leads.
And she's the one who sold the roofies to Max. And then Max uses it at the house party.
On her little sister. Oh my goodness.
And Becca's catatonic about it for a while. Doesn't tell anybody. Is really ashamed about it because, yeah, that would be pretty normal reaction. But eventually decides to track down the drug dealer because eventually she can figure out who they were selling to because she doesn't know who did it. She just knows something was wrong. I think that's how Becca puts it, is she just knew something was wrong and doesn't want to think about it, ignores it, but eventually it's nagging at her. And so she tries to track down who the drug dealer is so she can figure out who they sell to figure out who it could have been. And eventually finds out that it's Andy. And by extension, she figures out it's Max. And so she goes to Andy. She's really understanding about her sister being a drug dealer, first of all, that sells roofies to anybody.
Yeah, I would not be that calm.
But she goes to her and she's going to be like, oh, Andy's going to feel bad about it. And she's going to comfort me. And we're going to get this guy together by doing something. But then Andy's like, I don't give a crap. She does a lot of things where I'm just like,
really, Andy?
Well, that
terrible of a person?
I'm not going to say her murder was not murder, but her death was justified, but I don't feel bad for her.
Yeah. She gets in a fight with Elliot Ward and then comes home, and then her sister reveals this giant bombshell. Hey, I was assaulted and you sort of were involved because you did the drugs. She wasn't casting blame, but she definitely was like, hey, I know you know Max. This is why. And I think if she did not have a concussion, if Andy didn't have one, she might have been more understanding.
I don't think so.
She had a lot going on.
Because of herself. All the situations that she was in were her cause. Her bullying Natalie, her seeing out Elliot Ward and then blackmailing him. No one was preying on Andy. Andy was preying on everybody.
Oh no, I mean, I definitely don't have a ton of sympathy for Andy Bell. It is a teenage girl dying, but Becca does not handle it well. So Andy basically, because of her concussion, just starts getting sick, vomiting everywhere.
So Andy starts attacking Becca, like pushing. not like punching or anything. And so Becca pushes her back. And Becca's like, well, I didn't push her that hard. But she fell to the floor and started throwing up. She had a concussion, so it makes sense. She was dizzy. Becca, even like a small push, probably knocked her to the floor. And then she starts asphyxiating. And Becca is just in shock, absolutely in shock, and is just watching it. And so while her sister is asphyxiating, Becca doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Kind of just lets it happen. And then
she died.
Now that I think about it, I don't know why she didn't try to make it like an accident. Like Becca wasn't there, but instead she decides that she needs to cover up this. And so she cleans the entire house, spotless, beautiful, no traces of blood anywhere apparently. Or I guess the cops didn't really try to look because no blood, no puke, no anything.
She just disappears. She's clearly murdered, but she disappears.
And Becca puts her in the trunk of the car, and that's how Andy's blood is in the trunk of the car, because that's one of the things that the police are like, oh, it's Sal because blood in the trunk of the car. Takes her to this really old farm and puts her body in a septic tank, which, how big is this septic tank? Because I've had septic tanks in houses that I've lived in, and the openings are not big enough for an entire human body. But I guess because it was farm, it was a huge septic tank. I'm confused how she did that.
And they do not find her body for 5 years until Becca ends up confessing.
Because maybe UK septic tanks are different, but
they're in Connecticut.
American septic tanks usually are buried in the ground, and the opening is you open it and then you pump it out. And so I don't know if the septic tank is above ground and that's how she was able to do it so easily. I don't know. She was very quickly found this septic tank, and I'm just like, how did you do that? I had a hard time finding it in a house where I knew generally where they were, but we're just going to go with it. Now that I think about it, I want some clarification there. But it's in the septic tank because everyone tried to find the body in the forest.
Yeah. They're like, oh, he killed himself in the forest? Definitely that's where she's buried. I don't feel like that would be the most logical. I mean, I get because forest.
Stereotypical.
I mean, I guess if he felt so much guilt.
Yeah.
They did not investigate at all.
No, they did not investigate.
So Pip is over at Karen and Naomi's, and they basically are just talking about they're out of Oreos or chips or something that their dad had recently bought.
Butterfingers.
Yeah, the Butterfingers.
It comes up a lot.
They're like, oh, weird. And Pip's like, oh, your dad has Andy somewhere. I need to follow him because she's definitely alive. Because who else would eat that many Butterfingers? Her brain, immediately. And she just follows with no police backup, no anything. She's 17.
Oh my gosh. Yes, the lack of self-preservation. She purposely does not tell Ravi, who has been her number 2 this entire time. Doesn't tell Ravi, doesn't tell her parents, doesn't tell anyone where she's going. The only reason Ravi's able to find her is because earlier, conveniently, they did a Find My Friends and they shared their location. Thank goodness, because that saved her twice. Anyway, goes and is like, hey, I know you did it. And she called the police. Oh my gosh, the conversation with the 911 operator. I feel so bad for the 911 operator because they don't get little reports like, hey, it was fine. They made it out. All they get is the phone call. And then they don't know what happened after. It's a whole thing and it causes burnout and things.
They can watch the news. They can see the resolution of the kidnapped girl.
Maybe. But Pippa's just like, hey, this is my name. This is where I'm at. This is what I think is happening. You need to get the police here. Okay, bye. I'm going to go confront them. And then the 911 operator says, don't go confront them.
Too late. I'm already at the door. Already hanging up.
And she hangs up on the 911 operator and goes into the house. I get that the police are coming, and so that probably emboldened her, but
she's been kidnapped for 5 years. Andy is not going to be murdered or whatever. It's fake Andy, but she doesn't know that. She's not going to get murdered in the 10 seconds, 5 minutes, half hour, whatever, for the police to get there.
Really, though?
He's been going there 3 days a week. He's not going to abandon ship. So if she spooks him, he might. But if she stays in her car, waits for the police.
But no, she needed the story because obsessive. Supposedly to tell Ravi. Then you should have brought Robbie. Anyway. Oh no, he would convince me not to do the super dangerous thing where I'm left alone with someone I think is a murderer.
Yeah, he would. I think that also was part of the issue with Pippa as the narrator because she had no stake in the game. And a lot of YA mystery thrillers are like, oh, my mom or my older sister or somebody else I know that I love, somebody that they are personally connected to is missing or murdered or whatever. And she has none of that. And at this moment specifically, it made me take a step back and be like, what are you doing? Like, this is our capstone project. Shut up. Go home, little girl.
Yeah, the best she has is, oh, this will upset Robbie. This will upset my best friend. This will upset this other person. Not Pip.
Kara's dad, that is supposedly, I mean, he is, but the one that she suspects.
It's never Pip is sad for Pip. It's Pip is sad for other people, which is a little bit far. And I mean, it makes sense because teenagers. And so it's like, okay, I can kind of understand that you're being empathetic, but at the same time,
I don't think she's got that much empathy in her. Not the amount that this book is requiring of her is all I'm saying.
I do think that's why it's so boring until she gets the threatening notes. Because up until that point, Pip has no dog in the game. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she doesn't have a dog by the end of this either.
That was a poor choice of words. She does not have a horse in this race. Let's go with that. It's just no stakes whatsoever. Pip is never scared for herself. She's scared for her little brother. She's scared for her dog. Never is Pip, I'm scared for myself. When she goes to confront Becca, and I was like, don't drink the tea, girl. Like, don't drink the tea. And then she drinks the tea, and guess what? It's drugged. And Pip is like, but I was here to warn you. And she was telling Becca to get on an international flight, which, honey, if she doesn't have a passport, what are you doing? None of that made sense. But gets drugged, and then Becca's gonna murder her. So many times where I'm just thinking, you are going in thinking you're about to talk to a murderer. No backup. No one knowing where you are. This is the second time. Becca's about to murder her. She's gonna strangle her, and then she stops, and then she gets tackled by the dad. I guess it was to show, oh, she's redeemable because she's not really a murderer. She doesn't actually murder anyone. She just does manslaughter and attempted murder.
Drug people.
Oh, that too. Which I don't know much about roofies, but do they have a shelf life of 5 years? That's a little concerning.
Who knows? Not me.
Because I feel like most prescriptions have a shelf life of maximum 2. But that's beside the point. 5-year-old roofie drugs, totally fine. They haven't lost potency or become more volatile or anything. It's fine, guys. I have chemistry questions now. Moving on. I actually really did like that scene. I think the author did a really good job. I don't know what she has done to prepare to write a drugged person, but that scene was very well done. Personally, I have never had a drug to that level, so I couldn't speak from personal experience, but to me, it seemed very realistic from what I understand from TV shows. So there.
Oh yeah. As unrealistic as most of this book was, the author does it in a realistic way that mostly keeps you on the story. It feels like it's happening. The author does a good job on that. Sometimes when things get too ridiculous, it's like, oh, this couldn't happen. And, oh, no, it could. You just have to think a little bit. But that specific scene was really, really good.
Yeah, and I also like at the end, you didn't see this, but it becomes basically nonsense in her brain. The words are spaced out, and then the letters, like the last word, the letters are spaced and then are falling down the page.
Oh, that'll be cool.
It's artsy. Looks very good. But that was a good scene, but that was another example. Her family is going to watch fireworks, and she doesn't get Robbie. I don't know why she didn't get Robbie. That's just my question there with Becca. Becca's a great example of, hey, you should bring Robbie. But she's like, no, I'm going to go warn her and tell her to get on an international flight and flee the country so the police don't get her.
Yeah.
Ugh. I feel like we have barely touched the middle of the book, but there's just so much to unpack.
I mean, Read the book. Find out how we got from point A to point B. Follow the red string.
It's so much. It is so much. If we sat here and talked about every single element of this book, we easily would have a 2-hour-long episode.
Oh, yeah. And there's even some stuff in the middle that, not I forgot, that I had listened to this one back in June. It's been a while. And then I also read the other 2 books in the series. So I'm trying really hard not to spoil anything huge for you for those or other readers and listeners and stuff. But it is blurring a little bit. You get a little bit more backstory from a couple of these people in the follow-up books.
Which it sounds like, because like I said, Howie is definitely blackmailing the reporter.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
But here's a good example. Here's a thread. Pip is confronting Max about something, and he's focusing on this board he has that it just has like a bunch of photos on, which is a very teenage, young adult college thing to do, is just to have the board with 1,001 pictures and posters and just cram things there continuously. So he's focusing on this, and then Pip does this pacing trick so she can get closer to it without Max realizing she's getting closer to it. And she grabs something, and it turns out to be a half-naked picture of Andy. And Max is like, it was so weird. He's like, I swear I found it in a classroom, which is true. Andy put it in the classroom of Elliot Ward being like, you better find it. And then Max found it, apparently. Whatever. We're going to ignore that portion of it. Why does he still have it? This girl has been dead for 5 years. That's creepy.
Max is so gross.
Max is so gross.
He assaults girls and puts things in their drinks. And
we don't know that yet, but yes, he does that. And so it checks out.
Why was this not a bigger red flag? Why was Max not your number one suspect for Andy's murder? Because he had this weird half-naked picture of her.
Yeah.
It was like, oh no, I found it. Okay.
Why do you still have it? Anyway, the end of the chapter doesn't make it clear whether or not he throws it away or he puts it back on the board, which is another issue altogether. But Max gets arrested and goes to jail. For anyone who's worried, he gets his justice.
Or does he?
Don't say that. Don't say that. That is the only thing getting me through this at this point. Max needed to be arrested. There were so many issues with Max. Why was Naomi friends with him for so freaking long? Naomi's a pushover. And anyway.
She's not a good judge of character.
So from the half-naked picture, Pip is researching codes in Andy's day planner because drugs. She's found out she's a drug dealer and she's trying to figure out stuff. So she finds these initials and Ravi does some research and there's like 4 places. And so Pip researches these 4 places and one of them is like a little inn, a bed and breakfast type of deal. And so she's on the Yelp review. I don't remember if they call it a Yelp review or not. It might be copyrighted, but she's on the Yelp review and looks at the pictures that one person posted and recognizes the bathroom. It's like, oh my gosh, that is the bathroom from the picture that Max has. And so she and Ravi go all the way. She takes the train, or whatever long amount of time on this train, goes to this inn and talks to this inn owner, and she has Alzheimer's. But this is a little bit of the part where I was like, I don't understand some of the people that she names and some of the people she doesn't name. The author doesn't name the woman innkeeper. She names her deceased husband, who was a co-owner, and she names her son, but the inn owner with Alzheimer's does not get a name. So they try to talk to her and she's like, oh, Andy was here just a couple months ago. And then the sun comes down and is like, oh, she has Alzheimer's. So she's probably just really confused, which of course immediately told me that she had it right, which she does, because Becca came and talked to her. And that's why she thought somebody came. I don't remember why Becca went to the inn now, actually, now that I think about it. But Becca did come and talk to her. And so Becca looks so much like Andy that apparently fools security cameras and old women with Alzheimer's. And it's just this long thread. And then from that, they figure out that Andy's mystery guy that she told her friends about, that is an older man that she could ruin, that she went with her mystery guy to this place. And then she's trying to figure out who the mystery guy is. Like, this is a whole line just for the end. She did all of this research about this end, and the only part in the story is Elliot Ward going, yeah, we went to that inn like twice.
So it literally could have meant nothing.
It could have been nothing. It's so much.
Yeah, they follow a lot of almost dead ends, like with the Butterfingers. If she hadn't have been paying attention, she would not have gotten that clue at all.
If Kara hadn't made such a big deal about it every single time it happened, it's not Kara going, hey, do you know where the Butterfingers are? And her sister going, no, I don't. I guess Dad ate them. And Kara going, oh, no. Kara throws tantrums like, no one cares if I starve tantrums. And that's the only reason Pip realizes, because she throws this tantrum a couple times. And I'm like, Kara?
You okay? No.
I know you're a teenager, but this is a little manipulative and extra. I know she was probably joking, but I had the text version, so I have to assume intent. It's a little extra, honey. Little much for Butterfingers. Butterfingers are good, but honey, go buy your own with your own allowance. It's fine.
I don't know. Pip does all this like actual research, and then any of the clues to actually find it
are hunches.
Yeah, nothing concrete that she searched out ended up turning into almost anything.
Yeah, it's a very detailed timeline in the very end. I don't know if we needed all of that, but it was a ride. Yeah, it's a week, and it's the most detailed week of investigation I've ever seen in a young adult.
My favorite part is whenever she proves to Naomi, and I guess everybody, because the police eventually do get involved, but she proves that Sal had been there because he took the picture of the four friends hanging out. That was hilarious because you see his shirt in window or something, the reflective glass. Oh my goodness. Detective work.
That was actually really good. I really appreciated it because they talk about the pictures earlier, and so she does all this stuff. It's a long story how she does this, but she gets access to Max's private Facebook. She's looking through the pictures, and I really appreciate it when a author gives clues where the reader could have figured it out before the person. And I think this is a great example because she mentions there's a photo of the four friends, and you're like, okay, picture of the four friends. And then she asks the question, and she's like, wait, if you can see all four friends and it's not a selfie, who took the picture? I should have said that. I should have figured out, hey, there's something amiss. And then she goes into all the details. Okay, it's a little creepy that she knows the exact color of the shirt because at some point she saw him in the shirt and she's just like, that color blue is Sal's. Anyway, Sal's shirt is in the picture, and then you have the timestamps on Naomi's phone. But yeah, that's the little clue of, wait, if there's a picture of all four of them and it's not a selfie, who took the picture? And the reader could have figured that out a little bit earlier, but I didn't think about it.
I also did not figure that one out. I had a lot of good guesses about a lot of stuff. I was wrong about half the time.
I mean, your guess was as good as anything for some of these plot lines.
Well, and this author likes to bombard facts at the very end, too.
Yes.
She leaves clues, but she also, in a lot of YA mystery, it's just how they do their books. You can figure most of it out, but it's that knee-jerk reaction shock factor at the end with, like, the kidnapping and, oh my god, Becca was involved. Little things that were semi-hinted at. So you have to really dig deep to have caught the entire plot.
Yeah, this plot is so convoluted, it requires 3 separate monologues to explain it all. 2 villain monologues and then an epilogue style monologue, just to figure out what the crap happened. And then you don't figure out all of the things that happened. There are so many left open thingies, like you said, now that I'm thinking about it. The blackmail bothered me the most because Pip didn't take any of it into account and it bothered me. But there are quite a few things that were left open.
Yeah. It wraps up neatly and also chaotically, not wrapped up at all.
Oh, and my favorite part, sarcasm, very heavy, is, like I said, the capstone she should have failed because she didn't actually do the project she said. But because she solved the murder, the school has embraced her capstone project, not only made it where final presentation, because most of them it's a PowerPoint with your class, but no. Pip's is in the auditorium. It has been advertised on the website, and they are encouraging people to come, and even CNN is there to record it and broadcast. This feels really irresponsible.
She's such a good girl. She deserves all of the credit. She deserves to be put on a mantle. Pip is the best.
Pip is a minor. I think maybe she's 18 by the end of the book.
She has a birthday, I think, in the first book.
But that feels really irresponsible for a news source to be broadcasting, hey, I solved the murder from a high school.
But also, yeah, they found closure and Sal gets redemption or whatever. His name's cleared. But so much happened. And Pip, this 17-year-old girl, is like, you're responsible and you're responsible and you're responsible. Even if you don't go to jail, I'm holding you accountable. Basically calls all these people out.
Yeah, this book has some really heavy, I don't know. There's a good point to be made about how news media covers ongoing investigations. There is some great points that can be made, like the horse race that is involved with, oh, I must tell you every single detail, and oh, this person seems suspicious, so we're going to cast him in the worst possible light and figure out every infraction that this person has ever committed. So you think he's an evil person. What? He's innocent? Well, we're not really going to cover that.
It does it way worse, I'm not going to lie, in the second book because it's a podcast, an active podcast. So she basically takes her senior capstone, turns it into a podcast, and then in book 2, she does season 2 of it. But it does exactly what you're saying. The worst possible light of all of her friends and family and everybody that she knows again.
Wait, the ending of this book is Pip being mad at people for suspecting people, and then she turns around and becomes part of the problem?
No, she's the whole problem.
Wow.
She also is the problem in this book, to be fair.
But she's not broadcasting for a live audience. She just has a journal and it's her and Ravi being suspicious of people. It's not her broadcasting to a live audience every inane thought that she has about every person that she suspects.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's because I've been watching that Only Murders in the Building show on Hulu, which is fantastic, by the way. It's got Selena Gomez and Martin Short and Steve Martin. They're fantastic, but they basically do a podcast and solve a murder. And I think that's why I like the second book so much more than this first book. I do like the first book, don't get me wrong, but it's all of the terrible horribleness of a podcast and solving murder at the same time. I don't know, it's fantastic. I think because this premise of the capstone was dumb to me, podcasts made way more sense. Because true crime podcasts are such a thing, but most of them do cold cases. This does not.
Yeah, it's not a cold case technically.
It was 5 years ago, and everybody assumed that the killer committed suicide.
Yeah, it's kind of like Making a Murderer, where they were looking at a case in the past that had been resolved, but it's investigated like a cold case because it is so long ago, and you're looking at old evidence and trying to make new connections from it. But that's so hypocritical of her then.
No, she is. She's the worst. I hate Pip.
I actually take it back. It makes more sense for this to have been a podcast, but I take it back. Her starting a podcast, -1 star from the start.
Oh my goodness. No, please. Audiobook the second one, though. It's so funny.
Forget Pip's stupid. I didn't even really like it at the end where she's like, it's the city's fault for getting too blah, 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 or whatever. And she invites up Ravi and she's like, hey, you should fail me because I had help, which was dumb. They should fail you because you didn't actually do what you said you were going to do in your capstone project. But then she has Ravi come up and talk about Sal. It's just weird.
He's the victim's brother, or one of the victims, because as we find out, Sal is a victim and not the murderer.
Which I knew from page 1.
Oh yeah, as soon as this book started, I was like, yeah, no, he obviously is innocent. If I wouldn't have seen coming is if Sal actually did do it. The whole book being proved, no, it wasn't him. I would have hated it.
Yeah. The only reason I wouldn't be okay with that is not because of Pip, because screw Pip. I'm with you now. I'm on the Pip hate train now.
It's a podcast, guys.
Oh my gosh. Ravi. I love Ravi. And I would have been so upset for him and his family. His family is extra wholesome. You don't really get to see too much of them. You get to see him a little bit near the end. But I would have been so sad for Ravi.
Oh, yeah. I would have been devastated, but I definitely would not have seen that coming.
True. But it's a YA, so it wouldn't have.
Yeah. They already threw in so much with the kidnapping.
It's so much. The timeline alone is 3 pages of notes. It's so much. Andy gets a threatening note. Oh, it's from Natalie. Why did Natalie do it?
Not gonna lie, I do not even remember Natalie.
Right? Who is the older man? Oh my gosh, why does Andy always have money? There's so many things. Why was Andy's car found on the side of the road? Oh my gosh, security footage shows Andy driving at X time. Wait a second, Jason Bell left the party really drunk and went somewhere at some... It's so much.
But I enjoyed it. I liked it. It was almost too much, but I think it teetered the line just enough.
It's good if you're sitting down and reading it, but don't bring this for the book club unless you want to have hours long discussion. I felt like I needed a decompression after some of these chapters. There's just so much, and some of it's just nonchalantly thrown in there. Because why not add that? But yeah, stuff that I wanted to talk about. We talked about how at one point Pip was like, oh, I need to change the subject. And the reason she does it is so she's not scared when she's camping with her friends and gets a threatening note in her sleeping bag and there was somebody watching them. Not scared then. No, it's fine. She's not scared when she gets a note in her locker. She's not scared when they break into her house, log on to her computer and tell her to stop. Which, by the way, I don't understand why the person broke in to log on to the computer to write on her paper Pip stop for a bunch of pages. Why didn't you just delete the project? That was dumb. But not scared then either. She's just like, oh, we should move the key. No, she's scared when, granted, it is very scary. Threatening person kidnaps the dog, which I cared about. I don't know why you so heartless.
The way that she didn't care about anything except this dog is why I hate this dog and her emotions and all of it.
Take that out on Pip.
She didn't care about anything else. She was threatened and notes and people breaking her house. Did not care. Not at all. And then this dog goes missing and her entire world flips upside down.
You didn't have a dog growing up, did you?
No, I had cats and honestly they were mean.
It shows. I can tell.
We had dogs growing up, but they were my sister's dogs and I did not care about them because they were not mine.
I think it definitely really plays on the heartstrings of anybody who had a dog as a child. It may be missed by heartless people. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I could not care less about this dog.
By people that don't have that experience. And so it's a very emotional pull. It's like, oh my gosh, my wife has been kidnapped. Like it immediately has a connection to something versus, oh my gosh, this random stranger was kidnapped. Stakes are higher because it's my wife. And so stakes are higher because it's my dog.
If her little brother had gone missing, I'd have been sad.
Yeah, but then the cops would have to get involved because kidnapping. No, we can't have cops involved in this at all.
Medium low stakes, but high stakes.
Personal high stakes, not high stakes in the law.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they kidnap the dog and make her destroy the computer and...
Which is hilarious, by the way.
It was supposed to be an emotional scene, but I just kept thinking, if you didn't back up your project, then you're stupid. And then you find out that she did back up the project. But the whole time, all I could think was, does this person not know about Google Drive or cloud storage or email?
No, this person does not.
This person's stupid. There's so many ways. And it's even dumber because you find out it was Becca, because there's 2 people threatening her. Elliot Ward is threatening her and Becca, but separate. Becca's the one that the dog thing happened with. Becca's a reporter. She should know about saving work several places anyway. It was supposed to be emotional, and I just kept thinking it was stupid and overdramatic. And now that I think about it, Pip did email herself a version of it, so she still had all of it. And so it's like, why are you being so emotional about this? Hindsight, it's really dumb. And I also thought it was a little extra reading it.
It was so extra.
So she does that and is like, okay, my dog's going to be set free. And then the next day, I think the parents get a call from someone. Anyway, they find out that Barney died in a river and was drowned or something. And that is what makes Pippa be like, oh, I'm scared. I don't need to be involved in this anymore. If someone did that to my dog, you know what normal people would do? Not normal people, but dog lovers like Pip claims to be. There's an entire movie franchise about this. I would go John Wick on their butt. You wanted to scare me off this case? This is personal now. I am finding you for justice for Barney. But no, Pip's like, I'm going to give up.
Don't care. Let me turn in all my work. I'm done.
And then, I don't know, Ravi is a little too perfect, but I'm okay with that. Because YAs always do that. There's always like, oh, there's the boyfriend and he's so extra and perfect.
Or he's a bad boy.
Or he's a bad boy. But he's not really a bad boy. He's just misunderstood.
Yeah, he's misunderstood. Only I understand him though. Nobody else.
Anyway, we're not talking about one of us is lying.
Definitely not.
But yeah, I didn't like that. I did not understand the emotional direction that Pip went in, where she was like, I'm going to hide. And then Ravi had to be like, no, you can't do it. You have to solve it. And then her being like, you're right. I have to solve it. Also, I can't change my capstone project, apparently.
She just talked about her capstone and her college essay and all of that way too many times. I get that was the framing device that was used.
Yeah, it's very teenage, but also it's, hey, you need to write this essay for Columbia about who you are. And Pip being like, I don't know who I am. Now that I think about it, yeah, you're kind of a bland character. I don't know who you are either. But she keeps trying to write this essay about what makes Pip Pip, because, you know, college essays are stupid. Sorry, they're just really cliche. Pip keeps writing it over and over and over again and doesn't like any of them. And in the end, the essay she turns out and she's like, I don't know who I am. So I decided to solve a murder. And I'm just like,
yeah.
Is this the motivation we're going for? This is also dumb. But Columbia loved it. I mean, it would definitely stand out, I would think, in essays is, hey, I am attempting to solve a murder because identity crisis and imposter syndrome. That's a new one.
She's so extra about everything. But I'm a good girl, so...
Ugh. I never want to hear those words ever again. I don't know if that's a uniquely Southern experience. Disenfranchisement. That's very Southern, but obviously anyone can feel it. But sometimes I wonder. I even put in my notes, I started off the book giving it way too much praise. I started with, I like the unique reason the detective is the detective. Media representation of crime/court proceedings is such a rich field of study, because I studied communications in college, so I can speak to it. But that is not what happens in this book.
Yeah, that's where it started. But how did we get here? I don't know. Follow the red string.
Yeah, no, that's how it was for 2 pages. 1 page front and back. And then we tossed all of that out the window. No, it's just Pip getting involved in other people's business and being suspicious of literally everyone she's ever known for no reason, but idolizing this random person for equally no reason.
For real. For evidence. She does eventually come up with some good ones, but it's circumstantial. She overheard the correct sentence, but she does all this work and it leads to nowhere.
Yeah, it's a lot. General thoughts, it's a lot. I don't know what else to say, but it is a lot. A lot of stuff happens.
It kept me on my feet, though.
Yeah, I'm not mad about it. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars.
But trying to describe it to somebody else.
You sound like a crazy person. And even though now I'm officially on the Pip hate train because you've converted me, I would still give this a 4 stars.
Oh, me too. I'd read it again.
As much as we complain, I feel like that's so many episodes.
There are a lot of side characters that have a lot of depth and heart, and even some of the villains. I'm interested to know what's happening. Do they get their just desserts? I don't know. I kept reading, obviously. Did the other 2 books. Probably I'm going to read this other half prequel book.
It's very well done. There's a lot of technical things that I really like. For example, instead of it being Pip said, Ravi said, Pip said, Ravi said, or doing the no one said, and it's just quote, 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 quote. She does actions, blah, 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 blah. Ravi scratched his head, blah, 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 blah. Pip tilted her head. Actions as it was going on. And so I thought that was really well done as well, because it's very dialogue heavy.
I was going to say, she kind of has to do that just because of doing so many transcripts and doing so many, hey, here's what so-and-so said.
Yeah, and it keeps who's saying what straight without being Ravi said, Pip said, Ravi said, Pip said. Or, if we want to upgrade, Ravi exclaimed, Pip questions, Ravi muttered.
Yes.
So on the levels, she's gotten up to at least level 3 in her dialogue. I actually do really enjoy it. It keeps it as a movie kind of in my head instead of it just being audio for a little bit. Because sometimes those conversations can go on for a really long time and then you just lose the concept of what is happening and you just hear words. And so it kept it as a visual. I don't know. I'm not good at explaining things. I'm not the English professor in this family.
You did a good job.
Thanks. But yeah, it's a lot. There are so many things we didn't even touch, and we've already been recording for way too long. So, one question for the author.
So, I kind of answer my own question, not from the author, but in general.
You do that a lot.
I do. So, my question is, what made the author choose the college application essay capstone as a premise of this detective work? Because it's an original theme, I'll give them that, but it's also sort of a little tacky.
It's weird.
So weird.
It's not really relatable. Me and my twin moved back to where my mom used to live. That's relatable. Meeting my cousins for the first time because we were estranged by our grandma. That's relatable. I need to write a capstone, so I've decided to solve a murder because I don't know who I am and I idolize this dude I met 4 times when I was a child.
No reason.
Less relatable. I'm just kind of curious the age. Why a high school senior? And I know because YA, but I think it really is this disconnect. It's a UK-US disconnect where I'm like, capstones are for college.
Well, and so it's 2 groups of friends. Well, really, the couple that Pip has. Pip's friends, and then it's Andy and Sal's friends. But they're a couple years older than them, so it feels like it's their story, but just being told by this little kid. I mean, she's 17.
Yeah, and it took place when Andy and Sal were seniors. So you have that group of seniors, because Pip is trying to figure out, basically going back in time, like what happened during that. And so you have that group of seniors. And then you have the current group of seniors.
It's a nice parallel, but it's dumb.
It really feels like she's a high school senior just so the author can make sure it's YA.
Yeah.
Because this could very easily have been adult. I mean, adult is also kind of the default, so anything could very easily be adult.
That new adult theme.
Yeah, which isn't used ever because...
I think it eventually will be, though, just because the YA is rather recent.
It really could have been new adult, but it feels like maybe not because it's the best place for her to be, but because YA. I don't know. It's like a missing passion, I guess. And especially since the next couple of books are gonna be, she's 18, she's graduated, basically new adult territory. It doesn't feel so much like it was the passion of the writer, because you've mentioned several of the YA writers that we've read, but even some of the other ones, it's YA because the author wanted it to be YA.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't feel the same way about this book so much.
And there is the British disconnect too.
Maybe that is part of it.
I don't know. A lot of those folks do boarding schools. Oh, it's weird for us. Oh, it's British. It's fine.
Yeah, but it's understandable, though. I don't know. If this had taken place in Britain, maybe I would feel different. I need the UK global version.
Yeah.
And see how I feel about it. Rating. I give this a knotted up bundle of red yarn out of 10.
Nice.
It looks like a lot. It's kind of frustrating to work through some of the times, but it's very satisfying to untie at the end. For the most part, I felt satisfied. There were a couple things where I'm like, okay, this is weird, like the epilogue with the whole CNN recording a high school's capstone presentation, including Ravi coming up there and talking about Sal and then being like, the town is at problem. And then going on to create a podcast where she broadcasts every inane thought she's ever had. But the mystery itself, I think, was very good, even though I don't necessarily like Pip.
I'm going to give it a small town cop's resignation when a high schooler solves a murder in order to get into college out of 10.
I give this a book premises out of 10.
I'm bad at these out of 10s, okay?
I'm proud of you.
To be fair, nobody resigned, but they definitely should have, because after reading this, I was like, oh my goodness, do you police even do anything? This girl did all the legwork for you.
I accept that only because
it's a YA trope.
Also a small town trope. It's like, oh, it's a small town, so all the cops know everybody, and they look out for people that they like, even though they shouldn't. So you would read it again. I don't know if I would read it again. Maybe I would audiobook it just to hear the voice, because you made it sound like they actually put effort into it.
Yes, it's a semi-full cast. And the narrator, because I looked up her name earlier, Bailey Carr, I've listened to a decent bit of stuff that she's done, and she does the whole series. So if you do the other 2 books, and I definitely recommend the second one as an audiobook, it's fantastic. She has such a great voice. She almost made me care for Pip, which is difficult to say. But yes, I think you should continue at least the second one. The third one takes a kind of turn, but you might like it more.
Maybe I'll get it for free from the library instead of buying it.
Yeah, or audiobook it.
Anything else you want to add?
I think we've talked thoroughly about this book, and still not at all.
So much left untouched, but we got to cut it off at some point.
Read it for yourself.
Read it for yourself and then yell about it in the comments. Or yell about it to your friends. Just yell about it. But have you read this book? Would you consider this young adult? Do you have any book recommendations for us? Tell us all about it in the comments below. If you like the video, hit like. And if you're enjoying yourself, hit subscribe for more. Thank you for exploring A Good Girl's Guide to Murder with us. I'm Sam Reiner.
And I'm Danielle.
And we hope to see you and a friend here next time. Escape With Me Book Club is a Lunar Skulk production. Check us out on TikTok or Instagram to keep up to date with us. Lunar_SKULK.